What's up, marketing legends, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm producer Lyssna from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So wherever you are, get comfy and enjoy the show.
Hi everyone. Welcome to another ep of the Growth Colony, where we speak to B2B marketers about the critical lessons that they've learned on their journey so far to help you see around corners in your own path. And if that's not your bag, then it's just a good listen between two people talking about things you may or may not know about. Today, I've got Claire joining me, known for her strategic thinking, creativity, and ability to leverage digital technologies and customer insights to drive results. Claire is a seasoned marketing exec with over 15 years of experience across tech, financial services, education, and fashion, working with companies in the US, Dubai, the UK, and of course, Australia. Now specialising in brand, growth, and product marketing for B2B SaaS companies, she currently acts as the Director of Marketing at Lyssna. Claire.
Hey, how nice to be here. That was quite the intro, Vinnie.
I'm really excited for this ep, as I'll want to take what I learned from this conversation back to my team at My Social. Research is something that is always, as a marketer, is always something that you know that you should be doing, want to do, but, always think that it's too expensive. And I really want to get into that. But let's start with your background. You've got a significant suite of experience in marketing across apparel, financial services, tech. What's one pain point you've witnessed as a marketer across your career?
I think the thing for me that stands out the most is growth. Like, everybody is wanting to grow. It's the biggest pain point. Everybody wants to know how to do it, whether it's, at whatever stage in the customer journey. Every marketer that I talk to is concerned with how are they going to grow the business. And not only that, people have less resources. It's like, how do they do more with less is a common thing that I hear. Every single one of us, I'm sure, is having those conversations. Increase efficiency so that we can grow the business and obviously increase revenue and grow ourselves as a company. So I'd say that's probably the thing that I hear and that I'm focused on myself as well.
So growth, break that down for me. What are the proponents of growth? The options?
Yes. So for me, I think about growth as growth at every stage of the customer journey. So whether it's awareness, creating that demand generation, capturing that, coming through to like activating in the product, how do we continuously increase our conversion rates at every stage of the journey? And that's something that I'm always thinking of, like, how are we performing? How can we be better? How can we incrementally improve things? Because you know what it's like, Vinnie, the 1%ers at every point can make a huge difference in the end. So for me, it's growth at every stage of that customer journey.
I like that. So the 1% growth every day kind of mindset. How does that fit in? Stephen Bartlett talks about this a lot, where, as he was growing up through his career, he would speak about how a lot of his leaders or seniors ahead of him would always say, don't sweat the small stuff. In fact, he rebels against that and says and goes into great detail around, we should be sweating the small stuff, because it's those 1%ers which actually make us stand out in a massively competitive world. Anything to sort of talk about there?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it depends, I guess, when you're talking about the small stuff. Like, if it's I have a saying that I talk about a lot, is like, perfection isn't profitable, So if it's the small stuff of like tweaking something, is it worth getting it out, or is it worth perfecting it to get it out? That's not always important, I don't think. I think deliveries and execution is important. But when it comes to conversion rates at every stage of the customer journey, yes, the 1%ers make a difference. If you can get your activation rate up 1%, 2%, 3%, like whatever you can do there, that obviously makes a huge difference in the business. So I think making sure you're continuously looking at it, analysing it, experimenting, improving. You know what it's like? I mean, it doesn't always improve. Sometimes you get a nasty surprise and it goes backwards, but that's a learning as well, right?
And so this thinking that you've got, is this something that's sort of new in your thinking throughout your career? I mean, just to touch on some of the places that you've been: Lonsdale, London, in Australia, the Greater Bank, eCoach, Co-Assemble, Autopilot, Auto, and now Lyssna. Has that thinking been consistent throughout your entire career? Was it drilled into you at an early stage? Is it something that's kind of come to light more recently? Tell me.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've always been focused on. I've always been quite data driven. And so, very early on in my career working on conversion rate optimization projects and things like that, it was always how can we continuously improve those conversion rates. So for me, it's something that's probably been drilled into me my entire career is like, how can we continuously improve, whether it's landing page optimizations, whether it's, emails and making sure that our click-through rates are higher and all those sorts of things. I've always been quite focused on the data. And so I think just for me, it's just the way that I've worked as a marketer since the beginning. And probably that comes back to being more digitally focused as well. I was always very much looking at the numbers and the data and looking at those conversion rates. So I think it's something that's just stuck with me, and it obviously makes logical sense, right, as well. Like if you improve your conversion rates at every point, it's win-win.
100%. I mean, some people say the best way to tell the future is to look at the past. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, I think you can reflect back on what's happened and take learnings from it, and then obviously implement those learnings moving forward and improve.
So, silly question then, is this where research comes into play?
I think it does. I mean, for me, research it's been a bit of a journey for me. So when I was working financial services, working for a bank, doing the digital marketing, we had an insights team. And so that was great. Like you have a team dedicated to bringing you customer insights. We would get research reports. And for me as a digital marketer, I used to crave that data and those insights. So we'd have regular presentations and that was great because I could implement the learnings from that research into my campaigns, into the work I was doing. I could tailor creative, I could messaging, you could use it in so many different ways. And it always unlocked a lot of ideas in my mind when I got the insights. And so that was great. And I kind of got hooked on it. But then moving from financial services into tech, we didn't have budgets for those sorts of things. We definitely didn't have an insights team. But I found myself really craving that data and those insights when I went into smaller SaaS businesses. And so looking for alternatives to that. When I was at eCoach, we rebranded to Co-Assemble, and part of that rebranding process, I'm sure you would be aware, research is a big part. So we outsourced a big research project to Qualtrics, which was very expensive. At the time, it was great to get those insights, but it wasn't something we could continue to do when you've got small budgets and small teams. So yeah, I just continued to look for ways that I could get those insights, whether it's talking to customers, being in intercom, but still just missed, I guess, meatier research. Came across Lyssna, what was the usability hub at the time, and that's sort of put me on the path here now.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is this how you ended up at Lyssna? Is it, having been someone that gravitates towards the data and looking at the data points and trying to understand from that perspective why certain things have happened in such a certain way, but being a marketer throughout your entire career. I mean, this is the first role within a dedicated research role or company that you've been at. And so is this ultimately what led you there? And, this is...
It's what appealed to me. So when I came across we used to be called Usability Hub. And when I came across them, I was just like, this is the tool that I've been missing. Like for me, seeking that, user research and that feedback, I was like, I can do this actually really affordably and really quickly using this tool. And then it was not long after that I ended up joining the team because I just love the product and I can see all of its applications, not only for me as a marketer, but obviously for people in the product space. So yeah, that was something that really appealed to me about Usability Hub, but now Lyssna, yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, if there's a case study for, following your inner voice, I mean, right there is it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So research for growth marketing then. Okay, so we're here now, we're at Lyssna, and by we, I mean you. Research is expensive. It's always expensive. I know you're going to tell me that it's not, but should we be doing it at all?
I completely agree with what you're saying there. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be expensive. I've experienced what it's like being expensive. I would say 100% you should do it for sure. Like, I don't think people can afford not to do it. Otherwise, I mean, if you're doing it without research, like if you're making decisions that aren't backed by research, I know that there's gut feel and all those sorts of things that need to play a part, but you also have to be informed, and you have to be able to inform that gut a little bit, and research helps guide that. I mean, it can take so many different forms, and so I guess it depends on your objectives and all those sorts of things as to what you need to do. But I would argue you can't afford not to do research, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I think if you are a savvy marketer who has an objective in mind and knows what you want to do and who you want to talk to and all those sorts of things, it's very easy for you to conduct research yourself in a really affordable way.
Different types of research then. So you've got market research, A/B testing, landing page testing. Give me some more to add to that list.
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of different things that, I mean, personally I use in my tool kit, I would say, from a research perspective. Primary market research is definitely a big one. So I've mentioned rebrand. I've rebranded 3 SaaS companies now. As part of that, talking to existing customers is one thing, talking to your target audience is another, getting that brand perception study through, and then also talking to employees anonymously to figure out what their perceptions are. So things like that. We all know about surveys, those sorts of things. But then there's also some really interesting use cases. So when it comes to usability testing, things like preference testing, I've seen customers do some really interesting things. Like if you're spending money on out-of-home ad creative, you might want to test billboard creative in a certain area where that billboard is going to be put. You might want to try a few different concepts and see what's going to resonate, what's going to deliver the message that you're trying to convey and appeal to those people in that area. So it can be a real cost saving. If you get the messaging wrong, you get the creative wrong, and it doesn't hit the mark, when you're talking about bigger pieces of marketing like that, it can be quite costly. But there's also lots of different things. So like concept testing is something I see a lot of our customers doing with the platform. I spoke the other day to the British Red Cross, and they were testing different ideas they had for fundraising products that they were considering building, and putting those concepts out to a target audience and understanding which ones would resonate with people so they know which way to go is super valuable. That can save you a fortune if you go down the wrong path building out products that aren't going to resonate with people and the concept's just not there. Like things like that are very, very valuable. But then all the way down to what I would say like positioning. So you want to do message testing, test your messaging and your brand positioning. Does it resonate with the target audience? All those sorts of things. There's absolutely tons of different types of research that you could be doing as a marketer. And I haven't even touched on website, landing pages, those sorts of things yet.
Yeah. Okay. So look. So there's lots of different ways that you can run research, right? There's lots of different things that you can test. There's lots of different ways that you can test it. But ultimately, what you're looking for are responses from your ICP, your buyer personas, the people that you ultimately think that your product or service is relevant for. Right. And it's about getting it in front of them and getting enough responses in order for you to make more informed decisions about which way to go. Get that.
Yeah.
Right. But in there lies a conundrum. So get it if you're an organization that has an existing base of customers. Mm-hmm. What about brands that don't necessarily have? Like let's go one step back here and sort of look at startup land, for example. Right? Yeah. A way in which startups can prove product market fit, which is something that they need not only to know whether or not they have a viable business model, whether or not they have a viable product, whether or not that they're going to be investable, all those kinds of things, customers, investment, money, right? It all leads to the same path. But if you don't have an existing set of customers, how would a company in that position be able to run research in a way? Now, I'm going to leave that question there because there's more to that question. I'm going to leave that question there and see what you say and get your answer to that first.
Okay. I think this is really interesting. So I've recently been chatting with Paul Cheek, who works out of MIT in the US, and he actually uses our tool as part of their entrepreneurial course over there. So they get people to test a concept and put it out into the market with the target ICP and understand, does this concept resonate as a startup founder? If I put this out to someone, is this going to resonate with them? Is it not? Why not? And it's not just the quant data, but it's the qual data as well. It's like the why. Why would this not work, or why would it work? And so I think that's a really good example of what you've just said there. Is like, you have an early concept. You want to understand if it's going to resonate with the target audience. You can definitely do this by using the research panel. So research panels, there are many different ones available in the market, but obviously selecting down the demographics that match your target audience will help you get the feedback from the right people there. So yeah, I definitely think research plays a part here. That's not expensive. You can do that for a couple of $100, and get some really good insights from a target audience and understand, hey, is this going to actually hit the mark with these folks or not? So yeah, that's a pretty compelling use case, and one that we've definitely seen a lot.
And so, okay, so what you're saying is that this works for companies, organizations that only have an idea, all the way up to organizations that have a lot of customers already that they can leverage as well. So if that's the case, why are so few marketers leveraging the power of research if it's available at both ends of the spectrum?
I think honestly, it comes down to maybe just a case that people don't realize that something like this exists, like for very quick, fast research. I definitely thought that the option, like you said at the beginning of the call, was that you had to do a big research study. It was super expensive. And I think that was the traditional way, right? That's what we know traditionally as marketers. So maybe an awareness that this is actually available, this simple, fast, feedback mechanism. So yeah, I think that's one case. I think the other thing that sometimes is the case is confidence. Like maybe people haven't actually built studies before, surveys, they haven't built out research, and so they're not 100% confident doing this. But I think, as I said earlier, if you have a clear objective and you know what it is that you're seeking answers to and you're a savvy marketer, it's pretty easy for you to put something like this together.
Yeah, no, I mean, because my background is traditional creative advertising. And I remember back in the days, when we were working with a client, they needed some market research done, and we would put in focus groups, and it would be long hours in the office where you'd have a group of people that you've gone through an agency, pulled off the street, and you sat them down in one of the meeting rooms, and you've got pizzas and beers and wine, and you're paying these people for their time to ask them questions that. How do you capture that information? Mm-hmm. And so it was a whole ordeal. And it's not to say that I haven't done research since then. It's just that that's probably something that's stuck in my mind when I think about research. Similarly, we too also throughout my agency life, we too had an insights and data department where you could get this team to go out and find those data points and gather that information to help steer you in the direction to have those better quality conversations. But again, it was a big upheaval from a team. It's just the consideration of it all being, available now on a suite of tools, all in one place. It's incredible. Okay, so using content as research. Content's my bag. Content's my jam, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned testing. Too often, stakeholders can wince at putting something out into the world that they don't know will work, right? So how do we convince them?
I honestly think the convincing is in the doing, so proof in the pudding. So like if you are a designer, you put it out to validate your idea, you get some early feedback. When stakeholders see the results, and this is something that comes up a lot in customer conversations, I try and talk to our customers on a weekly basis. And it's something that they're all saying is, I need to settle those internal design disputes, or there's internal stakeholders. Everyone thinks one way, someone thinks the other, and they just need to settle those debates. As soon as the stakeholders see that feedback, or if they're doing an interview and they get the actual video of someone and the results, it's pretty compelling, and it's pretty hard then to not go back and want to do it again. So typically what I hear from people is like the first time, like sometimes there's like people not wanting, there's a bit of pushback. They don't want to do this. They don't want to put it out there early. But if you just do it once, share that feedback, you get buy-in from stakeholders, and then the appetite for doing this repeatedly is just there.
Let's go a little bit deeper into that scenario, right? So you are in a situation where the top dog, the boss, the big cheese, right, is adamant about one certain direction, and you run the tests, and everyone else in the room is not in agreement with he or she that leads the organization. But that person is vehement about their decision and thinks that particular direction is the right way to go. Everyone else disagrees. And then you gain the research to show that actually the leader is incorrect, and that option B and C would actually be better than option A, the one that the top dog is going for. And even if, irrespective of if the data comes back against the top dog, but the top dog still is vehement and pushes for their option, how do you handle that situation when it's so clear? I mean, can it be clear? Can it be as clear as night and day?
It's very clear. Like you will get a reading of statistical significance in some of the tests, like to say, this is the majority winner here based on, the number of responses that you've had and all those sorts of things. So I think if someone in a leadership position can look at feedback from target audience that goes against their choice, their personal choice, and still is unable to make the choice based on that customer feedback, the target audience feedback, I think that's really a questionable leadership sort of position that person is in. If the rest of the team are objective and wanting to see the feedback, and the user research comes back and it says one way, I just wouldn't understand why someone wouldn't listen to the feedback there. And I think that is a very tricky scenario to be in. I guess ultimately at the end of the day, if you have a leader in the business who wants to push forward with their idea, that you don't really have a choice if you are not able to sort of override that decision. But you would hope, I guess, in an organization that if there was a compelling amount of research evidence from a target audience, that there was a clear direction and a clear path to take in line with your target audience, that they would take it. I wouldn't understand the reasons why you wouldn't.
Well, I mean, not saying that putting myself in the shoes. Well, so let me put myself in the shoes of this vehement leader, right? In terms of not saying that I've been in this position, but I'm trying to put myself in that position. I'm trying to paint a picture around the fact that research isn't bulletproof, right? And so even with the research, I'm the leader and I say that is all very well and good. Glad we did it. However, I still believe that the one that performed the weakest based on that research is the way to go. And we decide to go with option A, the weakest, and it works really well. That's not me saying, that the research is no good. It's me saying we can't just rely on the research. So tell me about that kind of scenario. I mean, obviously, having the research is a great validation piece. It's a great way of being able to answer unanswered questions, to make you feel more relaxed, more confident about the decisions that you're making. But it's not the be all and end all, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, is there is still a level of, gut, response and sort of a general instinct that I think needs to come into the equation. So I think it depends what it is that you're testing. Like if it's user research and you're putting in a prototype and people are navigating it and it's compelling that there's a pathway that is clearly the one that everyone is taking, I think that's a little different. I think you've got a really clear issue with a navigational situation or something there. If it's something like branding and you've got a couple of brand concepts that you're doing and maybe you feel like something is like a trend that, this is an upcoming trend and I've got a general gut feel about this, you want to probably incorporate some of the research, but also maintain a gut feel and instinct about it as well. So I think it depends on the project that you're working on. In that scenario, definitely, I think you need to trust instinct and gut as well, but you can still look at that alongside some research and take into consideration maybe some of the qual feedback that comes through there as well.
100%, right? You've got a gut feel. You're feeling like that this over here is the answer. It is the answer, but I've got these two other options with a team that I know, respect, and trust, and they're driving that decision this way. Mm-hmm. So let's put it to the test to gain that further validation, and whether or not the research confirms that I'm wrong or not, it's a case of, there's a reason as to why that research has come back. And it's that we should be looking at. And it doesn't mean that you go with what the research necessarily has said as the option, but it's so much better to have that conflicting point of view to be able to steer yourself in that direction. And I think that's really the fundamental point here, that, any marketer that's listening, that first and foremost, if you're not doing research, there is a way to be able to do that more so now than much more efficiently and cost effectively now more so than ever. But then if you are a marketer that takes that into consideration or are already doing your research, there's also a fine line that you've got to tread in terms of not just listening to just the research as well. And that's something that as a marketer that has always, I'm talking about you here, Claire, as a marketer throughout your career, you have always been steered and guided back to, what does the data say? What does the data say? Can you tell me at any times where you have yourself, whether it was at Lyssna, whether it was at Lonsdale, London, whether it was at, the financial services, the greater bank, wherever it was, where you've seen the research and thought so vehemently against what the research is saying, and you didn't listen to the research and you turned out to be right, for example? Is there anything there? Is there any sort of examples that you can think of?
I can't think of a time when I've strongly been opposed to the research, but I can definitely think of a time where there's been a compelling leader that wasn't the choice that I had thought we should make. And it comes back again, this is what I was thinking about when I was mentioning the case before, is from a branding perspective, because you're looking at it thinking, what trends are influencing, what's coming through in the market, what do I think? And it might not be what's working right now, but you're looking more of a future state. And I think in that case, definitely I've seen research that I was not 100% aligned with, but like you said, taking on board the reasons why and that qual feedback around why maybe something didn't resonate, and then taking that feedback and refining a concept or going and reworking it based on what information you gathered, and then retesting and coming back and saying, how does this work now? That has definitely happened to me in the past. I could definitely say that. And I think you're right. Like, you can't blindly trust research, but you have to understand what is the type of research I'm doing and understand the full context around it. And sometimes, especially creatively, there might be reasons that what's in market at the moment is not resonating, and there might be something that you want to look forward to in the future, for example.
100%. And it kind of comes down to, well, if you ask the wrong questions, you might get the wrong answers. So
100%.
So, similarly to what a lot of people are saying if they're using ChatGPT, a lot of people have come to the understanding that, well, if I put in a shit prompt, I'm going to get a shit response. If it doesn't have the right context, it's not going to give me the right contextual type of answer that I'm looking for. Not to say that research should be put side by side to AI prompt engineering, but similar sort of concept, right? And so it's a case of, if you're going to be doing research, just like any other type of activity, you have to make sure that you know what questions are going to get the right type of answer. Well, answer that for me. So how do I know that if I'm conducting a piece of research, how do I know that what I am briefing the research house or the focus group or whoever it is that I'm talking to, the machine of Lyssna, for example, how do I know that what I'm putting in is going to garner me the best results?
I think you have to be careful. You don't want to game the questions to get the results you're after. That's definitely not a good thing to do. But asking the right questions and in the right way is very important. You don't want to bias your responses in any way. So I think there's a real finesse to asking things in the right way, but also providing the right level of context prior to someone coming into a study is very important. So they're aware of, okay, this is something for this, and now I'm going to be doing this task in light of that. So I think context really important, asking the right questions, very important, making sure that it's not biased in any way, not leading the respondent in any way, those sorts of things. So yeah, I think there are ways that you can ensure that. So if your research maturity level is quite low, you're new to research, using templates and things like that help. Using a question bank, those sorts of things, helping you frame your question in the right way definitely helps.
Because everything that you said there is easier said than done. But the hardest one out of all of those things is approaching it from an unbiased viewpoint. Because as a marketer within an organization, there are so many different things at play. You've got pressures from above, you've got pressures from beneath, you've got pressures from side to side, right? And, you're not necessarily out there to win an argument, but there are certain things within your role that are you thinking more from an egotistical standpoint? Are you looking to advance your career, for example? Or this conversation is taking a slightly different turn, I'll admit. But I do want to bring in the fact that there will be people listening to this and kind of going, okay, great, yeah, understand research and all that kind of stuff. But being unbiased and approaching it from an unbiased standpoint can really get you into a lot of trouble. And I'm not suggesting that anyone that's listening is consciously thinking about approaching research through a biased lens, but you might not know that how you're briefing it is going to be biased. Now, I totally get that you've got templates and all that lovely stuff to try and reduce that element. But I do think, and I'm not necessarily looking for an answer from you, Claire, but it's a thread that I wanted to pull on just in case anyone is listening, that is so important, that those pressures when approaching research, those pressures that are on you in your role are so critically important to try and temper down, whether you know you have them or not.
Yeah, I think just being aware that you can be biased based on the influences around you is important. I think sometimes just having an awareness that you are influenced by those sort of pressures around you. But when you engage in the actual research, you need to be really careful not to do so in a biased way, because all it will do is bias the results. It's not a good way of doing research, and you won't actually end up with the product that's a good product in the end of that. So yeah, I think it's just an awareness that there are biases around and making sure that you are removing yourself from any bias when you go into research. Really, research is about learning and listening and taking on board that feedback. So removing bias is what it's all about. So
bring a friend along. Bring a non-biased friend along if you feel that you're in danger of being biased in the research piece.
Exactly right. Get someone to review it for you. Make sure that you're approaching it in the right way.
100%. Okay, cool. So, Claire, we've got some rapid fire questions for you based on who you are as a person.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
What is one resource, book, blog, podcast, or talk, don't say the Growth Colony podcast, that fundamentally changed the way that you work or live?
I would say Obviously Awesome by April Dunford. I really love her approach to positioning for B2B tech products, and it's definitely changed the way I've thought when it comes to positioning products. So yeah, really, really love her work.
Okay, I'm making a note on that. If you could only give one piece of advice to B2B marketers or B2B salespeople, what would it be?
I would say talk to customers. So they'll answer questions you didn't even know you had. I try and talk to the customers at least every week if I can, if not a couple of times a week. And I feel like it's my superpower at work. It's like being able to really, really deeply understand customers, their pain points, what they're trying to do. It'll give you more than anything else will.
You need to come on again, and we need to delve into that a little bit more around marketers taking the leap in speaking to customers, because I don't think enough enough marketers do that. Who are the influencers that you follow in the marketing or sales space, aside from April Dunford?
Yeah, aside from April, I follow Eleanor Werner, who's a growth marketer. She's great. If you don't follow her, you should. And Carl Poyer, who's from OpenView. Very, very good people to follow.
Last question. What's something that excites you about B2B today?
I love the chase. Like, I'm quite a competitive person, and I think B2B is hard, but it's a really interesting challenge. I've loved all of the different B2B tools that I've worked with, and each of them have been quite different and unique with their challenges. And yeah, I really love the challenge and the chase of working with B2B products.
Great. Thanks, Claire. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Like I said, I'm not being facetious when I say that I think that we should get you on for another episode to talk about the sales and marketing alignment piece, because that is a hot topic as well. But thanks so much for coming on and sharing all of your insights into research and how marketers, B2B marketers, can be leveraging it more accessibly today. Thanks so much. And to everyone that's been listening, thanks for joining us, and look forward to the next one.
Great. Thanks for having me. I really liked it.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Liza Maywald and Alexander Hipwell. It was edited by Dave Samito, with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Liza and Alexander. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make this show without you. This episode was hosted by Vinnie Romano. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to know more about Growth Colony, check out our newsletter and subscribe with the link in the pod description. Do you think you'd be a great guest, or just interested in a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. Or fill out the form in the description. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week right here on Growth Colony.